The Sky News host referred to Jeremy Corbyn's comments in which he said Britain should only act through the UN in its dealings with Syria, effectively giving Damascus' ally Russia a veto over Britain's foreign policy. In response, Mr. Jones said, "Well, the reason the United Nations Charter was established in the first place was because the world descended into chaos in the interwar period in Europe, in Asia and Africa, and that we had arbitrary interventions by great powers repeatedly which went unchecked. So, the issue of legalities is very important." Mr. Boulton continued to quiz the left-wing author and said, "Russia has actually vetoed when it comes to chemical weapons inspections exactly what Mr. Corbyn was asking for." Sky News Jeremy Corbyn News. Owen Jones said Russia and the West have repeatedly broken international law. Russia has vetoed chemical weapons inspections, exactly what Mr. Corbyn was asking for. Adam Boulton. Mr. Owen sidestepped the comment and said, "The legalities issue, which is critical because we do need, without international law you will very quickly have the disintegration of any global sense of order, because if one great power decides that international law can be sidelined for any reason, then all great powers can also make the same." The Sky presenter continued to grill the columnist. He said, "And you think Russia is obeying international law at the moment?" Mr. Jones said, "No, I don't, Adam. I don't know why you are suggesting I do." Mr. Boulton insisted he was simply asking the columnist. Mr. Jones hit back and said, "Well, I'm trying to. We are going, as per, on several different tangents." The left-wing columnist went on to say that both Russia and the West have repeatedly broken international law. He added, "For example, as was the case in Iraq, as we have seen with the Putin regime with the terrible disgusting bombings, for example, in Syria, and the deaths of civilians. The problem is, which is what I'm trying to point out to you, is if we don't have a situation where international law is upheld by great powers, then you lay a precedent where all great powers can intervene arbitrarily." Mr. Corbyn was booed during a Commons debate on Monday after he claimed Prime Minister Theresa May's decision to take military action on Syria was legally questionable. The Labour leader said, "I believe that the action was legally questionable." On Saturday, the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres said as much, reiterating that all countries must act in line with the United Nations Charter, which states action must be in self-defense or be authorized by the United Nations Security Council. The Prime Minister has assured us that the Attorney General had given clear legal advice approving the action. I hope the Prime Minister will now publish this advice in full today. Mr. Corbyn has been accused of being more worried about upsetting Russia than preventing chemical weapon attacks. Conservative Party Chairman Brandon Lewis blasted the Labour leaders after he said he would never back military action without UN backing. Mr. Lewis tweeted, "Shocking failure by Corbyn on March to condemn Syrian regime or Russia or to recognize what has actually been happening. He knows full well Russia veto at UN. Corbyn seems more worried about upsetting Russia than about preventing use of chemical weapons."